Yeah, let's go to Bree in San Francisco, in the city. Bree, what's happening?
Well, what's up? Good morning, y'all.
Good morning, Bree.
So, hey, I'm going to take a different outlook on this Klay Thompson thing, because I think he is kind of like the turn in the team, because the Warriors are telling him, like, we might not think it, right? But the Warriors are telling him, you're the third best player on his team, because he's taking the second or third most shots, right? So I think that the Warriors need to sit down and say, we finally need to come to a contract. Because when it's a contract year, guys play two different ways. They either play out of their mind or they press the issue. And I think we're getting the press the issue Klay. And so, because they're not telling, they just celebrated, the 11, 30, 23. So they're saying, we want you here. We love that you're still a part of this staple, but they haven't yet showed him. And so I think, Klay knows he's not a max player, right? But at least to sign him how they did Draymond, at least for the 3 years or whatever. And then after the season, if they say, okay, Klay, we should probably trade you, then trade him. But at least for right now, I think he's just playing for a contract. So that's my view on it.
No, that's a good point, Bree. I'm not mad at your opinion, Bree. He is pressing. There's no doubt. Klay, we've gotten to know him over 13 years. We know how sensitive he could be. He reads everything. He listens, or people send him stuff. He's aware of what's going on in the chatter around him. There's no doubt about that. And on one side of it, you cherish that about him, because he does feel, as an NBA player who's making multi-millions, he does feel like one of us. Very personable, very just down-to-earth type of guy. So if anybody's going to be pressed during a contract season, it's probably going to be Klay. And then you add the fact that he knows he can't defend at the level he should defend at. And he knows he needs guys to create for him to go off. If nobody's creating for him, he can't do it himself. His handles have never quite been there, and it was on display against Sacramento and the LA Lakers, and he didn't get space to shoot, and it looked bad, very bad. Joe Lacob mentioned it. Boy, it was bad. We all saw it against the Lakers. Boy, it got ugly. And so I don't know if I think Klay's fighting through it. And he's a guy who we know mentally can really just be in a dark place. And right now, maybe he's in that dark place. At times you see him trying to break out of it, because there is so much pressure to producing and thinking that he is the guy he was before the injuries, but he's just not there yet. So with him, as Bree said, I think we do see a young man who's pressing, knowing that this could be the end with the Warriors, knowing it could be the beginning and the end of his career, and knowing that he's just not the same guy. And on some level, I understand. I couldn't imagine being in a contract year, knowing that I've helped this organization win 4 championships, and I don't have it. Boy, like the day I don't have it in radio or the day I don't have it in TV, it's going to be a dark day for me too. It's going to be a dark day for everybody.
I don't know. I always find this difficult to compartmentalize the average person trying to understand what the athlete is going through when it comes to contract money. Because on one end, you're like, dude, you've made $265 million in your career to this point, right? And on the other end, like, we all can work till we're 60 or 65, and hopefully you get to work that long. You know, their careers are very, very short, and they want to maximize it, and they want to keep it going and make as much money as they absolutely possibly can. I just think it's really difficult when fans hear, like, so-and-so's in a contract year. It's like one thing when you're Brock Purdy making $800,000. It's another when a guy's been around forever, and it's very difficult to understand that.
But that's why, well, I hear you. Maybe it is difficult to understand, but I understand it because I've been around these athletes for a long time now. And I'm not taking a shot at you or anything like that, or at any fan. But they are human beings too.
Sure.
And just because they make a lot of money doesn't mean they deserve all the criticism that they get. Like these guys in the league, whether it's the NFL, baseball, and Festa showed me one time, the comments they get as players is just salacious. It's just nasty. It's just, think about it. Guys go out there. Dak Prescott had to tweet at somebody because he didn't throw for 300 yards, and they're just ripping him because they're pissed off he didn't produce for their fantasy team or a bet. And he's like, dude, I don't care about your fantasy team. Like, think about what these athletes go through from, I can't handle it when somebody rips me on the text line or YouTube. So I'm going to compartmentalize with these athletes who do make multi-millions, because despite the money, when you can't do what you love at the highest level, the game you train for your whole damn life to get to this point in the NBA, and you can't do it, and you're pressing, I don't care how much money you make. You still have feelings. Rich people have feelings. You can't just say, oh, man, I got $600 million. I don't care.
No.
Like, at least Klay cares despite all the money he makes. The dude still wants to play, and he just can't do it. And I feel bad for him because he just can't do it. And he's pressing.
Okay. But there's also a level of self-awareness to understand where you're at in the pecking order. And to me, again, this is just my gut feeling. The way I see, just watching it every night, this team is bent over backwards to try to assimilate to him and get him in there. And it's at the expense of at times, some of the younger players. And so something's got to give here, right? And I understand his feelings and his desires and his wants. What I'm saying. But I'm running a business here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he shouldn't sacrifice minutes. I said it last Tuesday. He should have been out in the last 426. I'm just speaking from a human element to Bree's call and following up that the guy's pressing hard. And I understand why he's pressing.
He is.
I understand why he's pressing. Because, one, Mully always talks about it. Mully goes, I knew when I didn't have it. I was already one of the slowest guys in the league. I knew when I didn't have it anymore. I talked to D. Wright about it. When do you know? We had Festus on before he went to the G League Combine. Remember that?
Yeah.
With Kate Scott. And you could hear the Festus voice. And when he got down there, it's like, damn, I don't have it anymore.
When you hear from, again, I'm not pretending to be Mully, but usually, they know, but the rest of the league finds out before you know because the mayor's the last to know.
Well, the league knows.
You know, I mean.
But the players know, and they're hoping the league doesn't find out and catch up to it. Now the league knows. The league saw the Lakers series. The league saw the Kings series, and they know how to play the Warriors. And so when you think about that, it's a depressing feeling. I was talking to Mully about Indiana. He goes, dude, it was tough for me to even go to practice. You get to a dark place. I don't give a damn how many millions you got. You get to a dark place, it's a tough spot to be in, man. It is tough when you know you don't have it anymore. And that's maybe where Klay is at. So I do. So
okay.
Shame on me for having empathy for a guy who's made $500 million in his career. But then, I don't care.
So then let's spin it forward. Does that mean that you just keep playing him until he you're
not going to not
snap
play
out of it? It's been 20 games. He hasn't scored 25 once this year.
Okay, forget the 25 that he hasn't scored 25. You guys want him to sacrifice shots. He sacrificed shots this year. If he gives me 18, 19 a game, I'm good with that. Which he did the previous 7 games before last night. He was giving you 19 a game with some good percentages. He was a lot more efficient than he was the first 13, 12, 11 games or whatever it was. He was. I mean, was he not?
I don't think Klay has been one of the top 4 best Warriors this year.
I'm not saying he is, Shasky, but you said you need him. You on one end, you want him to score 25 a game.
No.
But on one end, you want him
that guy's not coming back.
Right. He's not there. The 18 he gave me for a 7-game stretch before last night was good for me. 41% from 3 is good for me because I understand his limitations. I understand who he is.
I think where we get caught up is that something has to give. Right? He has to accept where he's at to allow the growth of a Moody or a Kuminga at his expense.
Well, that's where Steve Kerr comes into play.
What?
That's where Steve Kerr comes into play.
Well, and I also think
last night may have been the start of it.
Into play
well, that's what I'm saying. Mentally, you got to talk to him, and if he can't handle it mentally, then we need to have another conversation. And that's not going to be a very comfortable conversation.
Like yesterday, he checked back in and they ended up winning the game down the stretch. But I was thinking, man, I'd like to see, I wanted to see Moody kind of close that game out after how he played in that first half, right?
I'm with you.
That's an example of, he didn't play good all game, and yet they put him in at the end of the game. And then they ended up winning the game. He made a big 3. He had a big bucket on a cut play. He also had a couple of bad shots. There was some give and take. He wasn't all bad. He wasn't all great. And so that's a game, though, where I'm saying, okay, well, Moody played better than him throughout the majority of that game, and then he gets to the final 5 minutes, and we go back to Klay Thompson there. So are we going to continue to do that all year?
I don't think so. Steve Kerr said this. He said it last night, and I'll play something from Willard Dibbs last week, but Steve Kerr said this last night about maybe changing the start lineups depending on matchups or just rotation changes.
Every night's going to be different with this team. That's what I'm finding out. What we need each night seems to be different depending on the matchup, depending on how the game's going. It's hard to predict what's going to happen each night. It's also hard to play 10 or 11 guys. So I don't think we know. I think I said it to you guys last week. We have a deep team, deep roster, but we don't have roster clarity in terms of, who's going to play every single night. And so everybody's just got to stay ready. And I'm really proud of JK that he did that, and he was really the reason we won.
All right, so that's Steve Kerr yesterday. Here's what he said on Willard and Dibbs last week. He was a difference.
Yeah.
He was a difference.
And I thought the young guys alongside of Steph, for however many minutes they were out there, they felt galvanized.
I see somebody on YouTube. Hey, man, we bent over backwards for Klay's last contract when he tore the ACL in the NBA
Well, that's
Finals.
what he was worth at that time.
Well, what were you going to do? Not pay him?
Well,
Did you not want to pay him back then?
He had earned that money.
Nobody knew.
He was worth that at the time.
Nobody knew Klay Thompson was going to tear his Achilles the day of the NBA draft when they selected James Wiseman. That flipped everything for him. That flipped everything because in the workouts, and I think DeLon Wright was at that workout. There was a bunch of NBA players. And Darrell, we were talking the day he did that. He said Klay looked great. Klay looked like a Klay old. Then the Achilles snapped. And now you got a different guy. You got a guy who's a shell of himself, and it's bad right now. But here's Steve Kerr last week on Willard Dibs on making changes to the lineups. Here's Steve Kerr's answer.
The guys who are going to drive us winning a title or not, we know who they are, right? They're Steph, Draymond, Wiggs, Loon, Klay. Like those guys, they were the ones. Gary, huge part of that championship a year and a half ago. So we know those are the guys that have to perform at a high level if we're going to compete for a title. So the guys who are going to determine our season are our main guys, our key guys, right? The guys who make all the money. They're the ones who determine winning and losing. I think our young guys are all developing, and they're developing at different stages. You try to help the development process. You fit them in here and there. But this season is about winning a championship. So that means for me, I am going to lean in to our starters. I'm going to lean into our key guys, and I'm going to give them all the space they need to find their rhythm, to establish, who they are. And once that happens, it'll make the roles much easier to play for the young guys. If you want to bail out on the old guys and plug the young guys in, then you're talking about an entirely different goal. And that's now you're talking about the future. You're not talking about winning a championship because those guys aren't ready to do that.
That's Steve Kerr's answer last week on Willard and Dibs. What do you take away from that?
Well, my retort to him would be because he said Steph, Dre, Wiggins, Klay, Loon, and GP2. And then I would throw CP3, who he didn't reference. We're going to win or lose with those guys at championship. Then I would just say to him, well, then you're not winning the championship. Because right now it's Steph and Dre are playing really well. CP3's been good for this team. GP2's out. Wiggins, Klay, Loon. That's not good enough. That's what I would say. And I would say that now you're in denial mode because things have changed dramatically in a year and a half. Wiggins has not resembled that player for close to a calendar year. Klay is probably not going to get back to where he was a year and a half ago, right? And Loon does not look like the same player this year. He just doesn't. And maybe they round into form. Maybe 20 games from now, we're halfway through the season, and I look super foolish and dumb, and they flip it around, and they all have a great month of December and January, and it looks totally different. But as of right now, I would say to him, yeah, that's not getting it done, and I think you're shortchanging the youngsters. That's the other part of this. I actually think now he's looking at the youngsters through the rookie prism, and I'm like, well, they're in year 3.
Yeah.
If they're not going to be ready to pull out of the oven as a lasagna, well, then when the hell are they going to be ready?
Well,
so now I've got a bunch of parts that I can't use. Then you need to make a trade.
If
I just don't agree with him.
I don't agree either.
Okay, so I guess I'm being confident.
No, I don't know.
I don't agree with Steve.
Because I know a lot of people love to put words in my mouth, but here's what I'm saying.
Yeah, what are you saying?
Well, and I haven't even responded to it yet, but here's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
If he's going to lean on the old vets, I get with Draymond and Steph Curry because they're playing well, but the other guys are not playing well enough to win the championship. So you're not going to win with the veterans. If you're going to go down with the old ship, then you know what? We're probably a first-round team. If that. Right now, you're not even in the box. If the playoffs started today, and then it's foolish to say we're only 21 games in, but I'm saying anyway.
It's a good chunk of the season, though.
It's a good chunk. We kind of know who they are.
It's exactly.
You're not going to be able to compete with the Minnesotas, the OKCs, the Denvers, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Suns, the Kings.
They feel a little lesser than those teams that you referenced.
If we need to recalibrate our expectation, then maybe play the young guys a little bit. But I understand what Steve Kerr's saying. If we do play the young guys, then the goal is not winning a championship. The goal is to get them better, but this is where last year comes into play. And it's like, boy, you could have You could have got them ready for this year by playing them last season. Now it looks bad that Kuminga doesn't play in a playoff series.
No,
because the Kings
we had to
Lakers.
play Jeremy Lamb. We had to.
And Anthony Lamb and
Anthony Lamb
and Ty Jerome.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
So you don't play these guys at all last year. So we kind of wasted the second season.
I agree.
So now they're not ready to help you win a championship. So to your point about trades and maybe making a trade, yeah, I think a move needs to be made.
Well,
There's no doubt a shakeup needs to be made.
It is ironic to me that we spent the bulk of the last year or so leading up to this season blaming all the young players for everything. And this year, it's like, nah, the veterans have really let them down this year. The veterans have really let them down. I would say the veterans are more to blame for the fourth quarter collapses and just the slow starts.
They were last year on the road in the first 5 games. Remember that? And we were on it. And everybody else said we were dumb. Everybody said, no, it's the youngsters. And I'd go back to South Beach, Miami, where they scored 2 points in the last 5 minutes. When they blew the game in Orlando. When they blew the game in Charlotte in overtime. When they got blown out in Detroit. I could go on and on and on. And some of the youngsters actually had one of the more impressive wins when they went to Cleveland with Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga.
I just boil it down this. Like to me, we could talk lineups. And when I watch Podziemski, Moody, and Kuminga play, they just have a little more juice than some of the other guys out there.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Like I feel like we all, not you, but like we overcomplicate these things. Well, they're winners and their resume. Just watch the games. Watch the games. I don't care about the egos and the this and that. The owner's spending way too much money to get this output. It's not good enough to justify the salaries that he's paying and the luxury tax that he's paying. And so something's got to be shaken up.